Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Emergency Service Headquarters on what is the third Bushfire Resilience Day since we began to commemorate and acknowledge this important event. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge some of our invited and special guests who have joined us today. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Honourable Emily Bourke, MP, the Minister for Emergency Services, Corrections, Sport and Recreation and Autism. I'd like to also acknowledge Brigadier Timothy Orders, Commanding Officer, 9 Brigade, South Australia's own brigade, here on behalf of the Army, who are a proud partner with our emergency services. I'd like to acknowledge Lower Eyre Group Officer, Kim Eagle, and thank him for coming along. Kim will be talking to us today about his role as a group officer and the leadership he provides and the journey that he's gone through post major incidents that have occurred. I'd like to also acknowledge our other emergency service leaders, Chief Officer Jeff Swan, Chief Executive Julia Waddington-Powell, representatives from our Volunteers Association, from the State Emergency Service, and of course, more widely, CFS volunteers, staff and other emergency service and military personnel. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we meet on today, the Kaurna people, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. The Kaurna people have proud traditions of caring for land and community, and CFS and our emergency services continue those proud traditions through our collective work. Bushfire Resilience Day is an opportunity for us to pause, an opportunity for us to reflect, and I'd like to start our service today by asking if everyone could please be upstanding whilst we pause for a minute's silence to acknowledge, reflect, and remember those we have lost through major fire and other emergencies across South Australia over the years. Please pause. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir. Resilience Day is an opportunity for us to reflect on the losses that we've suffered as a community, as a state, on the things that we have saved. And it's a chance to pause and acknowledge how far we've come as an agency and how far we still have to go. They say that those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And over the 100 years that CFS has proudly served South Australia, we have an extensive history that is full of defining moments that have shaped who we are today. For a fire service, these events are tough. They're often viewed, especially in the immediate aftermath, as some of our biggest failures, as the times when we weren't able to save everything and everyone. And it's true that we can never lose sight of the losses and the trauma that these events cause. Yet we also know that these incidents represent CFS and emergency services at our best. These are the moments when nature is at its very worst and when our people come together, step forward, regardless of the risk, and show the community their very best. These are the events where the courage, where the commitment, and where the skills of our people are most clearly visible. And they are also the times when the resilience of our service and South Australia in general is most apparent. This week, on Wednesday, Adelaide was officially the hottest city in the world. Sadly, not a record that we want, but one that we will continue to see more of due to the continued effects of the changing climate. There were temperatures in the low to high 40s across the whole state. And in amongst this crippling heat, firefighters battled blazes across South Australia, most notably in places like Mount Torrens, Millicent, and of course at Wilmington. The Wilmington fire started 12 days ago, late in the afternoon last Monday. One of a number of fires started by lightning. This fire took hold as it burned to the steep, unforgiving terrain in the Mount Remarkable National Park. Within 2 hours of that fire starting, firefighters were on the ground. They were supported by 9 aircraft in the air. Beginnings of an incident management team. Warnings and information being issued to the community. And over the next week, this fire spread through the park as our firefighters from the CFS, from national parks, from the local army, supported by our partners in the Salvation Army, from St John Ambulance, from the State Emergency Service, and from our friends in the Defence Force. They worked hard to continue to implement containment strategies and tactics. All of their efforts, all of their work was to try and build a box for this fire so that it couldn't get out of it on Wednesday when the relentless heat returned and the winds increased. And I spoke about resilience earlier. I mentioned why today is so important to acknowledge that resilience. And this fire is an example of that tireless ability to push through setbacks, to overcome challenges and keep going. And it defines CFS and it defines communities across South Australia. On that first afternoon of the Wilmington fire, senior firefighter Michael Wigg was seriously injured on the fire ground. Despite the risk to themselves, his fellow crews quickly bundled him into a vehicle, began to treat his injuries, and extricated him from the fire ground. Senior firefighter Wigg was brought to the Royal Adelaide Hospital and is currently recovering in the burns unit. And he and his wife Anne and their resilience is beyond incredible. And it's humbling talking to them both and is a lesson in how to deal with and overcome challenge. Equally impressive is the fact that the crews who were with Michael on that afternoon have continued to fight that fire and continue to protect their community without missing a beat. Their service is an example of true resilience and dedication, if ever there was one. Equally impressive is the community of Wilmington itself. With a fire that is close to 5,000 hectares on their doorstep, the community has faced the challenges of the stress of not knowing what will happen next, of the heat, the constant buzz of aircraft and the movement of fire trucks, and the constant, ever-present choking of smoke. Through this, life has continued in the town. I was in Wilmington last Friday and was able to attend a meeting with the community at the local hall. And the resilience of the residents was on display everywhere. From the ballet lesson that had packed out the hall before the community meeting started, that continued business as usual. You will be pleased to know I didn't partake in the ballet lesson, just to be very clear. From the donations of food and drinks from the local community to the staging area to support and recognise the hard work of our people. Or from the beautiful handmade cards, pictures and notes from the local primary school delivered to the staging area and put on the tables for our firefighters to read whilst they ate their meals. The community kept moving forward, keeps moving forward now, supported by our emergency services, and life goes on. And whilst we're joined here by our Army colleagues, I thought I'd also share a story about life going on from the 2019-2020 Kangaroo Island fires. Those fires devastated the Kangaroo Island community, burning out over half of that island during those events. And we worked tirelessly from all emergency services, supported by the ADF, to provide that support to the community, to help them rebuild, to help them recover. And I think one of the most exciting moments was towards the end of that campaign, after the rain had fallen, as the fire was pretty close to being declared out. And the Defence Force hosted a concert for the community at Pandana, and to see everybody come together and enjoy fantastic music and an opportunity to just celebrate moving forward and what the future held. Absolutely incredible. And it's that ongoing resilience that defines South Australia and how we all operate. I go back to Wilmington, the efforts of all our people, those superhero efforts, working in the heat, in the difficult terrain, dealing with the wind that came from different directions constantly. All of that effort resulted in the fire staying inside the box that they had carefully created. And it's an incredible achievement, and one that I hope everyone who had anything to do with that fire is incredibly proud of. Because you need only look across the border at the challenges our friends in Victoria have had in the Grampians to see how significant the achievement of containing the fire in that terrain, in these conditions, and amongst the driest 12-month period in history truly is. By holding on to that fire, we'll be able to begin that transition to business as usual and recommission our equipment and our capabilities and be ready for the next fire. And there will be next fires. The need to constantly learn from and acknowledge our history is so important. And this fire season, in the midst of those dry conditions that I just spoke about, every total fire ban day has brought with it the risk of new challenges and new threats to the community. Every anniversary of major fire events that has passed this fire season, from Eden Valley fires to the Eden Valley fires, to the Pinery fires, the Samson Flat fires, to Wongaree, and of course Ash Wednesday this coming weekend, has made me pause and reflect on how lucky we are to have gotten so far into the fire season without adding another event to that history. Group Officer Kim Eagle will talk shortly about Wongaree, but it's important to acknowledge that these major incidents have happened before and they will happen again. The Pinery fire in 2015 was an eerily similar footprint to the Wongaree fire. This year's devastating fires in Los Angeles were equal, not unprecedented, and have happened before and sadly will happen again. But what will equally happen is that we will rebuild, we will recover, and we will be ready to deal with next challenges that arise. Our fleet, our equipment, our aircraft, our use of technology, all these things will also continue to get better, and we will face these new challenges better prepared and more capable than the last. I saw this unending commitment to being good to go again and being ready for the next challenge last night at a fire at the back of Harndorf. A fire that started, quickly threatened homes, lives, traffic on the southeastern freeway. A rapid response by firefighters on the ground and in the air saw homes and assets saved, lives and livestock saved, and the freeway continued uninterrupted. The aircraft alone performed 88 drops in the space of several hours, the majority of them by the Black Hawk helicopters, which we've added to our fleet. Black Hawk helicopter was doing a load of water almost every 2 minutes, and it's simply incredible to see that capability brought to a good effect and being used to get these kind of outcomes. As I drove home from that fire last night, I went through Harndorf, and there, as I went past the fire station on the main street, were the CFS crew from Harndorf who had been at that fire for hours and hours already at the station, recommissioning their truck, restowing their gear, even with a blower back out, cleaning out the engine bay and the forecourt of their station so that they're good to go for the next call out, whether it was that night, today, whenever. And it's that commitment to being good to go again that South Australians can take great comfort in. So today, as we pause, we reflect on all the things that make CFS who we are, that make South Australia who we are. Know that the resilience of our people and our communities is unwavering, and that we are ready for the next challenge, no matter what it is and where it is. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's now my great pleasure to introduce our Minister for Emergency Services, the Honourable Emily Bourke.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. And I would also just like to start with a very big Mani Napudni, Nainari, Emily Bourke, Ghana, in another job, Ghana, Yata, Temple Muthi, acknowledging women in Ghana land in Ghana language. I'd like to say thank you to Brett, Jeff, and Kim. I know we'll hear from you very shortly. Thank you for everything you've done for your community, and I'm sure that you continue to do in the recovery. And it's been 20 years, but I know many in your community will still talk about that day and an experience in those days. I had my first experience yesterday of going into emergency service from being the Minister for Emergency Services. It's now just been over 2 weeks, and it is always a reminder that many in our community will see the effect of fire through smoke. Sorry, Julia and Tim. Is many will wake up in the morning and see smoke drift over their community, might be even metropolitan Adelaide, and they're reminded that there is a community in need. They may never really experience that impact of being a part of a community where there is the glow of the fire, or seeing the fences burnt, or seeing the infrastructure taken, or being a part of a community where tragically lives have been lost. Many of you here have been a part of that experience. You've been the first to take part in helping and providing support. But many of us will only ever see that drift of smoke. Yesterday I had the great privilege of going and seeing a community being impacted not only by that drift of smoke, but being able to see the glow of a fire from their home windows. Wilmington is a very resilient community. I went out to see many people participating, the community that are coming together to support each other, and it was a really humbling reminder of how powerful it is when we see adversity in our community, how we can come together and support each other. You see this every day through the roles that you play, either as volunteer or personnel in our fire emergency services. But it was probably my visit to the Wilmington Primary School that I will never forget. I went and sat down with the students because, as Brett just highlighted before, so many of our incredible students in Wilmington have sent cards to our volunteers, thanking them for their service and thanking them for protecting their homes and their community. I sat down with the local regional commander, Cindy, and Brenton. Sick child. And I know the fear. My child has told me just before. Don't know what that's going to be about. But I sat down with the students, a small school, a country school, and I said, is there any questions that students would like to ask about what is happening at the moment? And the first question asked was a very humbling one. Despite their age, I think she would have been about 8, was how is the firefighter that was injured? How are they? And obviously we were able to say that the senior firefighter, Wiggs, is okay. And I spoke to Anne and was able to tell them that Anne herself feels like she needs a secretary because she's getting so much love from the community and so much support, and that means so much to her and to our firefighter Wiggs. Once they were relieved that the firefighter was okay and the member of their local community was okay, the questions came on thick and fast. I can see smoke from my house. Am I okay? And the reassurance was given, yes, you're okay. The brilliant CFS and local volunteers are doing their bit. One little boy said, I've been able to see the glow from my window at home. I've been really worried. And other teachers raised concerns and said, we've even been worried. And this went on for a little bit, lots and lots of questions. And then there was one little boy, he would have been about 10. And he put up his hand and he said, I've got a question. It didn't turn out to be a question. It turned out to be a statement, but perhaps even more so a commitment. And he stood up very proudly and said, when I grow up, I want to be a CFS officer. And I think that 10-year-old really displayed what resilience is. That it is, despite all those questions of fear and worry and concern, is that this little 10-year-old wanted to be a CFS officer. So I think to each and every one of you, you do an incredible job because you cannot be what you can't see, and you enable these children to not only feel safe in a time of need, but you make them feel protected. And that is an incredible effort for each and every one of you. Now, I'm trying not to get, I don't know why I'm being so emotional, But this is to remember everyone that has been through what Newington is going through right now. When I saw 53 lives have been lost, we can never forget that. And that is significant of days like today. We can never forget, and change is never easy. And change is never easy when it's usually come about because of tragedy. And unfortunately, that is usually why change is created, particularly in our communities. So, as the new minister, I'm all ears. I want to hear from you. I want to learn from you. I am new to this. I am a country kid. I came from the York Peninsula. My family is still in the York Peninsula. I've seen what you do in our communities. But I really do want to learn, and I'm not just saying that. So please share your ideas so that we don't have to have change come from adversity, but we can get ahead of it. Because whilst we have had those tragedies and the lives lost, good things have come so that we don't go through that again. And I've seen that only recently. I've seen new fire trucks going into our communities, replacing the old with the new halo systems that we've now have in place because of the KI fires. Legislation that is coming to help protect each and every one of you. And that is what is important. We must protect those that protect us. Getting the message out there to the community about what we can be doing to prepare our homes and to get ready so that our homes are less likely to either cause a fire or if a fire is there, that prevention has been put in place. So getting that message out there for me is important, but each and every one of you are so incredibly important to our state. I want to thank you dearly. I will close with the words of the primary school because it cannot be said any better. Thank you, fireys, CFS, farm units, and volunteers. You rock.
Thank you very much, Minister, for those kind words. And as the Chief Officer, it's hard to disagree with the kid from the Loughlin Primary School. You do indeed all rock. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my great pleasure to introduce Group Officer Kim Eyre. Kim is the Group Officer in the Lower Eyre Peninsula Group, a busy part of our state. Kim provides not only impressive and unwavering operational leadership to the volunteers on the Eyre Peninsula, but more broadly, he provides that leadership and that commitment to everybody in CFS and across South Australia. He sits on the Chief Officer's Advisory Committee. He is always putting his hand up to be involved in how he can help CFS, help us evolve, help us continually improve. And it's an impressive legacy and an impressive amount of work that goes into doing that. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Kim.
Thanks, Chief Officer Loughlin, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. In response to Brett's introduction that I'm going to talk about, Bourke fire and everything like that, is what I'm not going to go into a blow-by-blow description of my recovery process and the community's recovery process, because my goodness me, we'll be here till this time tomorrow. And there is lots of stories that have come out of it, like when the cricket club that I played for, they come down every day for a few days to help me on my property. They got back home that night and, everybody was the colour of this lectern, completely black from ash and everything like that from the work we do. Their wives and partners basically told them to strip naked when they come through the door. You're not coming in looking like that, and clean the black ring around the bath before you get out. So just over 20 years ago, I was the White Flat Brigade captain and attending a bushfire incident that was to become known as the Bourke fire, or to some Black Tuesday. The statistics around this fire are well documented, and I'm not going to recite them again today. However, there's one thing that I would like to highlight about understanding why this fire was so destructive. During the day, the fire danger index reached a maximum of just over 330. So when we consider FBI of 100 is considered catastrophic. This was out of this world. To appreciate my journey of resilience during and after this fire, it is important to note that I was impacted in 3 separate ways. The first as a crew leader of a fire truck trying to combat the inferno in catastrophic conditions, including being the first crew to discover 2 deceased firefighters. Secondly, as a farmer whose property and business suffered major damage when the fire front tore through the Whitefloat area, while we were protecting other people's assets about 30 kilometres away. And lastly, while a coroner's inquiry and subsequent legal action ensued. Reflecting back, I have come to appreciate how the journey of resilience and being resilient is a deeply personal one. As a farmer and an emergency services volunteer, we have regularly been generically labelled as resilient, given all of the difficult situations that we face, and yet we continue to function. Due to my experiences, I now find this resilient label is very unhelpful and can in fact be quite detrimental to some people's mental health. Every individual reacts differently to trauma, and their recovery does not follow a uniform path. Being part of a community that is labelled as resilient can set their recovery back significantly if they are struggling. They may be judging themselves unfairly against others in the community or being down on themselves for not bouncing back when they have been told that they should be. This can lead to a reluctance to reach out in their time of need and feel like an outcast within the community for feeling like a failure to live up to the resilient tag. The Oxford Dictionary defines resilient as being able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. After the Loughlin fire, I witnessed members of our community choose to follow a range of paths, fully rebuilding, building, then selling their homes, leasing their farms, and also selling their properties as they were, because they couldn't face being there any longer. These are all understandable and expected responses after being affected by a natural disaster, but they don't align with the definition of being resilient. So why are we labelling communities and groups resilient? There are offers of funding to make communities resilient. There are educational tools to make communities resilient. But my experience is that this is unachievable due to the different human elements that we're all made up of, and because it is a never-ending cycle of learning. So let's instead focus on increasing our resilience from whatever base we have through a continued learning cycle, and not just achieving a certain level by attending some of these workshops and proclaim that we are now resilient and we can handle anything. This actually closes off our minds to further possibilities, which might aid in withstanding the natural disasters and significant trauma episodes in our lives that are yet to come. A couple of statements in conclusion that I'd like to share with you. Being resilient and how you bounce back is an individual thing, and we need to embrace that and work together to ensure people can seek help when they need it the most. And through learnings out of big events such as Loughlin, we can put practices into our own lives and in our own communities to help people feel like they can speak out if they're not feeling particularly resilient. And I think that's incumbent upon all of us to put structures in place to allow that to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim, for your words and for your reflections and the important message, because resilience is not an end state, it is an ongoing piece. It does require work, it requires continued investment in all of us and in our continued learning, and a really important message. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the formalities today. A couple of reflections in closing. First of all, my thanks to you all for your time today, for taking the time out to pause and be with us. We are really grateful. for that and for the ongoing partnerships that make South Australia so strong. I'd like to thank our small team of staff who worked tirelessly to bring this together and organise today's event in amongst the Wilmington Fire and the other Total Fire Ban days that we've been prepared for and working on, and all the other challenges. I'd also just like to acknowledge the 2 fire trucks that are parked behind. They are brand new, yet to be issued to brigades, very, very pending in the not too distant future, where they will be gratefully received. But on the 19th or the 20th of December, memory is just a slight moment of gap there. We gathered out the back of the Emergency Services headquarters just before Christmas, and we acknowledged and celebrated the retirement of the last single cab fire truck from our fleet. And when we talk about Wangari 20 years ago, the bulk of our fleet was made up of those single cab trucks where firefighters rode in the back facing the other way with limited crew protection, with in the heat, in the cold, in the rain, subject to the smoke, the embers, everything. Those vehicles were state of the art when we brought them in as an outcome and as a learning post Ash Wednesday. And then come to Wangari, they were old and they were not in keeping with best practice. And we have worked as an agency across decades of continued and planned investment to ensure that we could bring in the modern dual cab based fleet with some of the best safety systems and equipment in the country across all our brigades across South Australia. It's an incredible achievement and something we're incredibly proud of, something that makes us more resilient, something that makes us better prepared for the future, something that comes about because of the tireless advocacy of our volunteers, the Volunteer Association, support from the government, and hard work by our small team of staff and our fleet team. This is what today is all about. It's about acknowledging that, yes, there have been major events that have defined us as a state and an agency. But sadly, there are lives lost far too many. But from that tragedy has come renewed vigour and renewed focus and new capability that will see us better prepared for the future. I look forward to continuing to work with you all as we advance and make more improvements so that we are better prepared for what the future brings. Ladies and gentlemen, we're still in fire danger season. There is still risk to go, although if it just rained a lot heavier, that would be wonderful. I can only ask that you all please stay safe as you go about your duties and continue the great work you do. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.